Hello for the fourth Sunday of Advent, using the Gospel, Luke 15, 1 to 32, and the Gospel this past week, Matthew 18, 21 to 35. And it has to do with my concept of God, your concept of God. Well, first of all, on Tuesday, we had in the reading this Matthew 18. And Peter asks Jesus how often he should forgive his brother 7 times. And Jesus says, 77 times, Peter, always. Well, then Jesus goes on and gives a story about a king with his servants who owed him money, debtors. And the king went to the first debtor and asked him to pay back all he owed. It was a large sum of money. And he pleaded with him and he begged him, and the king, total with compassion, forgave him the huge amount. And then this same debtor who was forgiven all this money, he went to somebody else who owed him something, a little amount, small amount, and he throttled him and threw him in prison and his children and until he paid the last penny. Well, the king was furious, and all the other people who knew the story. And so then they went and they took this guy who was in compassion on a smaller amount of someone who owed him, and they really socked it to him. And then Jesus, at the very end of that gospel, says, "So will my heavenly Father do to you, unless each of you forgives your brother or your sister from your heart." Wow. Is that the way God the Father works? My heavenly Father. Well, I think that's terribly different than what we hear today in today's gospel. In today's gospel, it's the prodigal son story, Luke 15. And really, it's 2 sons again, or 2, not 2 servants, but 2 sons, the older and the younger, and the father, another father. Another story or a parable by Jesus. And this is, I think, is the way I understand God the Father. And, well, you know the story. We've read it over and again. It's a classical story. This father loved both sons, the older one and the younger one. Well, the younger one was the wild one. And he wanted to get all the family money that he deserved, and he took off and he blew it licentious, living with prostitutes and so forth. And then he was hungry and he thought, well, my father, the people work for my dad, get more money, get a better deal than I do. And he goes back and he throws himself to the mercy of his father, and the father welcomes him back, unbelievable, and throws a party for him because he came home. He was dead and he came to life again. And the older son, who was a goody two-shoes, he did everything right and so forth, and he stayed. He didn't blow his money. He was his father number 1 person on the farm or wherever, the vineyard. And then he saw what the father did for the youngest son, and he was angry. He wouldn't even go into the celebration. And that father comes in and pleads for him to come in because the other son was dead, but now he's back. Unbelievable. This story, as we all hear often, this shouldn't be called the prodigal son, the young son, the wild one son who comes back. This story should be called the loving father. That father, in my mind, is like God. That father loved both sons. He's like God the Father. He doesn't like sons and daughters. He likes everyone, loves everyone perfectly, and is ready to forgive always, absolutely, and totally. I understand God the Father or Jesus or the Spirit as that same type of person, like that prodigal father. He didn't throw him out of the family. Don't you ever come and step foot on this farm again or this vineyard again. He didn't say what you've done is abominable, go to hell. He didn't throw him out of the family. I'll never, ever do anything for you again. He loved both the sons, and he loved them both infinitely, and always ready to forgive totally. So Jesus saying to Peter, no, Peter, not 7 times, but 77 times. Forgive your brother, your sister, 77 times, are always like my heavenly Father. He didn't say this, but I think he also would say, like this parable of the prodigal father, that he took the worst and he forgave the biggest and the most. That's like God. So many times we have God trying to catch us, throw us into hell, and just really creep up on us and lead us into this temptation, but not deliver us. Just the opposite. Just the opposite. My plea to you is to take these 2 Gospels from this week, or this Sunday and this past Tuesday, to take that Gospel and really read that one in Matthew 8:21-35. And think about, is God like that king, that one forgiving the debtors? And then take and read Luke 15:1-32. Is God like that prodigal father who forgave and loved both his children? Classical text. Greatest short story in the New Testament. The prodigal father story. Oh, go ahead. You can keep calling it the prodigal son story, but I don't know which insight in the scriptures that Jesus gave do you buy the most. Have a good day.